Hello everybody, my name is Sylvain Rochon, and this week I had to change of plans. I was very busy with all sorts of stuff, so I didn't publish any video, but I've been pondering on many subjects over the week, and I decided this weekend, since I had a bit of a lapse of time I could use to make a recording, I decided I wanted to talk to you about doubt and facts. Because it's come up a whole lot in discussions recently. Actually, the discussion was more about fake news versus facts, and how do we discern between what's real and like a fact and what is imagined or an opinion. In particular with what's going on in the States with the elections and Trump, and there's this dichotomy of types of information going on there. A lot of people, naturally, even before Trump, used assumptions to assert themselves in discussions, just assuming what they believe or what they think is the same as facts. And it's okay in discussions, in casual discussions, but when things get heated and people get frustrated, then you still base yourself on opinions as if they were like real facts. Then you get into problems, especially when two camps form, and then you argue with each other about what is real and what's not, where there are some fairly easy ways to discern what is fact and what is not. So I figured it would be good to talk about that. And the reason why I include doubt in there is because it's extremely useful to be comfortable with doubt. Now, let me get into the thick of it. A fact is usually not something we uncover with our own senses. Let me be clear about that. There's I love the writings of René Descartes, the philosopher and mathematician from, I believe, the 18th century, where he did most of his writing. Maybe it was 19th century. Anyway, a while ago. He's the one that came up with the phrase, "I think, therefore I am," or at least that's a short version of his conclusions. And what that actually means is that the only thing we're absolutely sure of, like when we only look at how we observe information through our senses, is that we are able to think. That's the only certainty that we have 100% sure we're capable of thinking, and that's the only proof that I have that I am alive or that I exist. Everything else is filtered through our memories, our pasts, and the current information that how the brain filters information as it goes through our senses. Our eyes are actually like cameras. They capture all the information around us, all the colors, all the details, but our brain actually processes only something like 1% of the information that is captured by the eyes. And the rest of it, of what we are aware of, is inferred from memory and from context. That's why sometimes if you're, some people that are afraid of snakes, for example, they'll look in the grass and they'll jump and they say, "I see a snake," but in fact, their eyes clearly identify a garden hose in the grass. And why the person sees a snake is because, well, you see some green and some colors and some shape that the brain interprets, and it fills in the blanks with that fear of snakes. And you actually see, well, I saw a snake. No, you didn't. Okay? And that happens with every sense we have, like the audio sense, the feeling. Everything is basically tainted by our own experiences. So just because we see, hear, touch, or taste something, and it reminds us of something from that is recognizable, it doesn't mean that it is actually what we think, because the way we perceive the world is completely erroneous. So we can't base ourselves on our perceptions, on our memory, because memory also changes over time, even from events that are very, very clear. There's all sorts of evidence that show this. So what we should get used to, and this is my own personal opinion, when we are just standard living, like a day-to-day, is to live comfortable with doubt. It's like, I don't know. Or I think I saw a snake in the garden, instead of being absolutely sure, right? It's just being aware that we are extremely prone to process false information. So being comfortable with doubt can alleviate lots of conflict. Instead of saying, I definitely saw your car pass in front of my street the other day. It's like, I think I did. Then you verify with the person. The person may also lie. The world is going to be filled with doubt, and that's okay. We don't need to be absolutely sure of everything, especially when there's no way to actually show it, because you don't have the means in place to get 100% certainty most of the time. Now, what happens is that we can alleviate some of these doubts with a consensus. Like if there's 50 people that are watching a street and seeing a car passes by, and you do a survey, independent surveys of each individual, those 50 individuals that are watching the street, and you ask about what type of car that was, well, there's a fairly good chance there's going to be a majority of people that will identify the right color, the right make, and so on. So you can get a consensus from a different perception. You get basically an average and of a majority, and you have a reasonable good certainty that what the majority or the consensus have observed is going to be the right thing. But so that helps. And but the better way, if you want to receive facts, is to use a scientific method. And not only scientists can use scientific method, everybody can. I mean, it's a very it's a fairly simple principle. In general, if you want, the easy way to get some facts out is to use machinery. Okay, because machines and sensors they have an error, a small error percentage, because its measurements are not absolutely perfect. But if you use a sensor like something simple like a thermometer that is not defective, it will in fact measure the temperature in the room. That is mechanical. It works according to the laws of physics. It's going to, the mercury is going to expand and retract based on the temperature according to rules of physics. If you look at the measurements of the thermometer, everybody's going to agree on the exact same number. Okay? So the trick is to use tools, just like scientists do, use tools to get information that is unbiased, that is not information that comes from our senses that are in fact completely biased, and more often than not incorrect or twisted, and so on. So you use tools. Well, if you use tools, then you can say, well, the temperature right now is, let's say, 15 degrees Celsius. And everybody's going to agree to it because the measurement is clearly stated on the thermometer. So that's how you get facts. Now, you don't need to derive facts yourself and measure things yourself. That's why researchers actually publish information in reports. And when they publish a report, there's a very detailed description of the experiment and how it was done, with what type of equipment that was used for measuring, and so on and so forth. And other teams of researchers, they go through and they try to duplicate the experiment to see if they get the same results. And then if sufficient teams from all sorts of areas of the world get the similar results, then that creates a consensus of facts, like measurements from equipment, right? And everybody kind of agrees, okay, well, we were able to duplicate your experiment, so looks like we have a fact on our hypothesis of that particular case, whatever is being measured and whatever is being tested. And then that is also, all these documents are also published, right? And they're usually peer reviewed just to make sure that the writing is correct and it's valid, and there's no loose ends that make the paper dismissible, or the research dismissible too early. or too quickly. And then we accumulate this information and these factual information. So science is actually a great way to base ourselves on how the world works, and it doesn't need to be like physics or biology or some of these exact sciences. It could be social sciences too, by using the laws of large numbers, and then consensus and percentages, and then duplication. Then you get tendencies. And researchers are very careful with their wording. If they say there's a high chance of something, well, it means it's not 100%. It has a high chance. So whenever you have a doubt about something, don't try to take someone's opinion, even though the person's opinion or his opinion seems to be very valid to you, and he seems to be very, very sure of himself. An opinion is an opinion. It's based off of perceptions. Always check the research. Now that we have the internet, you can do some search and find some credible individuals that can link to proper research that has been duplicated many times, and then you can show if a certain thing has been validated using the scientific method, using scientific methodology, and duplicated in different places. And then you can take that as like, okay, this is fact because it was properly researched and duplicated. Now I say this is fact because of that, not because of my own opinion. And sometimes there is no research, or the research is inconclusive. It means there's no proof either way. Like a great one that's always ongoing right now is the existence of a persona like God, or the existence, the way I flip it, something in conversations about when we talk about a God being does a God exist or not? There's no proof either way. Also, there's no proof either way whether extraterrestrial scientists a long time ago created life here. That's another hypothesis that you can't prove. And so there is doubt, and doubt is fine. We can't prove either way. These are theories, opinions, hypotheses. Let's leave them at that level of understanding. It's okay. It's okay to have doubts. Scientific thinking is to define things that are factual, that have been proven using scientific method as such. Things that we absolutely don't know as I don't know, because it hasn't been researched, we haven't done any experiments on it, this is new information, whatever. And sometimes there's this gray area where we just don't know, and just we remain doubtful, and eventually more information comes by and we can perhaps validate or invalidate whatever hypothesis that is in front of us. And it's okay to wait. When Newton, when the apple fell down from the tree, like you know the story from Isaac Newton. I mean, he thought about why does it fall, and it started doing math, and created the equations about gravity that define gravity. Well, at the time, he was an extremely religious person. Well, he was always throughout his life a very religious person. But at the time, the stars and the moon and the sun were the domain of this God that he fervently believed in. But in his writings, because he was defining gravity, because he was able to observe and make mathematical equations and do experiments that proved, in fact, that everything was attracted to by this unifying force towards the center of the earth. Well, that gravity was no longer something that they had doubt into it. They became light shone upon the gravity, and then it was no longer a domain of God. It was something of science, the domain of facts. And as time went on, we discovered a lot of things that used to be doubt that we didn't know, now we do, because more and more research. So as citizens, in this discourse that is continuing about who's right and who's wrong, Always think about, well, let's find the facts. Let's not assume the facts, let's find them. There's a huge amount of research about immigration and people that are in prison. Why is there a predominantly black prison population in the States? There's a reason for that, and it's very well documented. It's not a one person against the other's opinion. It is factual. You can just research it. Now, here's the last point, though. Not everything that looks like scientific research is. Lots of information on the internet comes from people that claim they are experts, and they say things are facts, but just because you say something is fact and you have a doctor in front of your name doesn't mean that it is. So you got to check your sources too. You look at the news. I'm from Canada. I look at Fox News and I look at CNN. Totally different stories they tell about politics. When they talk about something that's not political, they both agree on the same type of story. This is bad, this is bad, this is good, this is good. They both agree. But when it comes to politics, because they are catering to two different types of populations that have very different opinions, well, all of a sudden they talk a completely different language. One of them tends to use sources that are valid. The other tends to emit lots of opinions, and when they do cite a source, the source is not very good. I'll give you an example. Well, and I won't keep you in suspense. CNN has good sources almost every time. Fox is really weird. I can't even watch them anymore because they just pull stories out of their asses, or they take information from people that to me are not credible, and they have opinions. They are defined as experts, but they have opinions that are not founded in factual information half the time. So I mean, I can't really relate to whatever Fox is doing, at least for political reasons. But let me go to an example, which I just lost. But anyway, it's not that important. We need to ground ourselves and to train ourselves as citizens in checking sources. I guess that's the point. And sources are not that easy to define and to validate for everybody. So it's a talent that needs to be defined, needs to be practiced. And if you're not sure, just be honest and say you're not sure. It's okay. And then you can check with people that has a little bit more knowledge or understanding of sources and to validate it. But generally, I can say that news outlets that are fairly big and well known tend, and this is not an absolute, they tend to check their facts. Like I just mentioned Fox. That's an outlier, really. It's big, but it's really sensational. It's more entertainment than news, in my personal view. But New York Times and the Globe and Mail, those news outlets that are considered serious are not absolutely always on point factually, but most of the time. And you should always check, even if it's in those periodicals, you can always check for yourself. Make your own mind about what's factual, what's not. And if you're not sure, if you have doubt, keep the doubt. It's fine. That's what makes us progress. If you have a doubt, then you can do more research to try to find out, to alleviate that doubt. If you don't, then you stand on your own opinion, and you may be wrong, and you're still going to defend your position. And that's no good, and that's not good. So let's practice in seeking reality and basing our decision making on fact, on real reporting, real information. And everything else, it's okay not to know or having doubts about things. That's fine. And then we can all agree, and eventually somebody comes up with some data, and then we can discuss it, and then we can repeat it, and then what is doubt could be affirmed or denied, and then there's always going to be some other things to discover. So I'm inviting you to take that approach and swallow your ego. You don't need to know everything. Nobody does. Just follow the correct information, and I think we'll be better off. That's it for now. Ciao.